What if I told you that over 100 million people voted on what the greatest structures in human history actually are? And the whole thing was run by a Swiss foundation that basically just put up a website and said, all right, you decide. That happened. That was real. And somehow, out of 200 nominated monuments from across the entire planet, they narrowed it down to seven. Seven structures that apparently represent the absolute peak of what human beings have ever built. I mean, is that crazy? Because I think that's kind of crazy. Today, we're going through all of them, and honestly, some of these will genuinely blow your mind. Some of them are so old and so weird that I don't really understand how they still exist. Let's just get into it. Kicking things off, we have the Great Wall of China. Now, I want you to picture this for a second. You've got a wall, except it's not really a wall. It's more like a network of walls and fortifications and parallel systems that stretch over 21,000 kilometers. That is genuinely insane. Most of the famous sections were built during the Ming Dynasty, which ran from 1368 to 1644. But construction started as far back as the 7th century BC. So this thing has been getting added to for like 2,000 years. Workers used stone and brick and rammed earth depending on where they were building, and millions of people were conscripted to work on it, many of whom died during construction and were reportedly buried within the wall itself. I mean, that's not a fun job. UNESCO made it a World Heritage Site in 1987, and today it gets millions of visitors every year who walk along sections of it and take pictures. The wall also served to control trade along the Silk Road, which is actually a part of the story that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. It wasn't just about keeping nomadic armies out. It was about controlling who went where and who paid what, which honestly feels very modern. Sliding into number 2, we've got Petra, located in southern Jordan, carved directly into rose-colored sandstone cliffs by a people called the Nabateans. Now, I find Petra genuinely fascinating because the whole place is literally cut out of rock. They didn't build walls and stack blocks. They carved palaces and temples and tombs directly into cliff faces. No mortar, no detachable anything. Just chisel and patience, and apparently an extremely good eye for symmetry. Petra was the capital of the Nabatean kingdom, and it served as a major trade hub, particularly for spices. And these Nabateans were not messing around with their engineering. They built a water management system sophisticated enough to support a full city in the middle of a desert. How does that even happen in 300 BC? The place got nicknamed the Rose City because the rock changes color throughout the day depending on the sunlight, going from pink to orange to deep red. A Swiss explorer named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt stumbled upon it in 1812, after it had been basically hidden from the Western world for centuries. You can see architectural influences from Egypt, Greece, and various Near Eastern traditions all in one place, which tells you exactly how cosmopolitan this trading city actually was. Number 3 is the Colosseum in Rome, and I mean, come on. This thing is 2,000 years old, and it's still standing in the middle of the city. Emperor Vespasian commissioned it in 72 AD, and his son Titus finished it in 80 AD. It could hold 50,000 spectators. Think about that. 50,000 people watching gladiators fight lions in 80 AD. The seating was actually organized by social class, with the emperor and nobility getting the best views and common citizens shoved up into the upper tiers. Very relatable, honestly. The underground section, called the Hypogeum, had a whole system of chambers and mechanical lifts for raising animals and props up into the arena floor. So they had literal stage machinery running underneath a stadium 2,000 years ago. The whole structure was built primarily from concrete and sand with a system of vaults that engineers still study today. And it's still there, right in the middle of Rome. You can just go there and look at it, walk around it, partially ruined, sure, but still absolutely massive, and still genuinely intimidating in a way that a lot of famous landmarks just aren't. At number 4, we've got Chichen Itza, the massive Mayan archaeological site sitting in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. The centerpiece is El Castillo, a stepped pyramid that rises 79 feet above the main square. And here's the part that still kind of gets me. This pyramid was deliberately designed so that during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sunlight hits it at an angle that casts a shadow along the north staircase, making it look exactly like a serpent slithering down the side of the structure. The whole thing was built to do that, on purpose. The pyramid has 365 steps total, one for each day of the year. The Mayans built a calendar into their architecture. I mean, we're out here arguing about what day of the week it is, and these people were engineering their pyramids to show them the exact moment of the equinox. The site as a whole shows influences from multiple Mesoamerican cultures and was constructed around 400 AD, though it was developed and expanded over centuries. Beyond the pyramid, you've got ball courts and temples and observation platforms. It's not just one building, it's basically an entire ancient city with astronomical functions built into the layout of every major structure. Machu Picchu comes in at number 5, and I think this might be the most visually dramatic entry on this entire list. We're talking about a full Incan city, built at 2,430 meters above sea level, in the Peruvian Andes. The Inca Emperor Pachacuti ordered its construction around 1450 CE, and the location alone is almost impossible to understand until you actually see pictures of it. The whole thing is perched on a mountain ridge surrounded by steep cliffs dropping away into cloud forest on every side. The Spanish conquistadors never found it, which is probably why it survived. American explorer Hiram Bingham brought it to international attention in 1911, though local people obviously knew it was there the whole time. The stonework is what really gets people. The Incas cut and fitted massive stones together without using any mortar whatsoever. Each block was shaped to lock precisely against its neighbors. And they did this on a mountain. Moving those blocks up those slopes without wheels or iron tools is something engineers still aren't entirely sure how to explain. The site has terraces for agriculture, temples, residences, water channels, all laid out with remarkable precision. Today, access is increasingly restricted to protect it. As of recently, they cap visitors at around 4,500 per day, which sounds like a lot until you realize what happens to ancient sites when millions of people walk through them every year. Number 6 is the Taj Mahal, and honestly, the story behind it is the kind of thing that sounds made up. Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan lost his wife Mumtaz Mahal in 1631, and he was so grief-stricken that he ordered an entire mausoleum complex built in her honor. Construction began in 1632, and it took 22 years and around 20,000 workers to complete it. 22 years for a tomb. The white marble used in the construction was sourced from quarries in Rajasthan, and was specifically selected for its translucent quality, because it changes appearance as the light shifts throughout the day. The inlay work is extraordinary, semi-precious stones like jade and turquoise and coral set into marble in intricate floral patterns covering essentially every surface. The design is perfectly symmetrical from every angle, which required advanced geometric planning that still impresses architects today. The 4 minarets at the corners, the reflecting pools, the walled garden, it all functions as a single cohesive composition. If you ever get a chance to see it at sunrise, apparently that's when the marble goes from pale gray to almost golden pink. The whole thing is surrounded by this extraordinary stillness that most very famous places don't have. And saving the most dramatic for last, number 7 is Christ the Redeemer, standing on top of Mount Corcovado in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. This one is different from everything else on this list, because it's relatively recent. Construction started in 1926 and finished in 1931. The statue stands 30 meters tall, not counting the base, with arms stretching 28 meters wide. It is the largest Art Deco sculpture anywhere in the world. The whole project came about because a group of Brazilians were worried about what they described as a rising tide of godlessness after World War I, and they proposed building something that would be visible across the entire city. The design came from Heitor da Silva Costa, Carlos Oswald, and the French sculptor Paul Landowski, and the face was actually sculpted separately in France before being shipped to Brazil. The statue is covered in roughly 6 million small tiles and is made of reinforced concrete, tay underneath. Getting materials up the steep mountain during construction was an engineering challenge on its own. Lightning strikes it regularly, which somehow feels appropriate, and in 2014 a storm damaged the tip of the right thumb. They repaired it. The statue looks out over the whole city of Rio from up there, and has become one of the most photographed things on Earth, which is either a testament to its power or just a function of how photogenic the location is. Probably both. So there you have it. 7 structures spread across 5 continents, built by 7 completely different civilizations over a span of roughly 3,500 years, and somehow they all ended up on the same list. The voting process that produced this selection back in 2007 was genuinely democratic. Over 100 million people participated worldwide. And I think what's interesting is that the results actually reflect something real about which places still make people feel something when they see them. Whether that's awe, or curiosity, or just the strange feeling of standing in front of something built by people who had no reason to think you'd ever be standing there looking at it. The Great Pyramid of Giza, by the way, was given honorary status and sits outside the official 7, which honestly feels a little rude given that it's the only ancient wonder that never fell down. Now here's something worth thinking about. These 7 places exist on the list partly because they survived. Hundreds of other extraordinary structures didn't. The original Ancient Wonders list included things like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and the Colossus of Rhodes and the Lighthouse of Alexandria, none of which exist today except in written descriptions and occasional fragments of archaeological evidence. The Hanging Gardens are so mysterious that archaeologists still debate whether they were real at all. Some scholars now think they were actually built in Nineveh rather than Babylon, which would shift the whole story by a century, and a completely different king. Ancient sources describe terraced gardens with a self-watering system, essentially an irrigation mechanism lifting water from the Euphrates up into elevated planting beds. Whether that existed in Babylon, Nineveh, or somewhere else, see entirely, nobody can say for certain. We have the descriptions, we just don't have the gardens. What the new 7 Wonders list really gives you is 7 places where the thing is still actually there. where you can buy a ticket and stand in front of it and understand at least a little what it took to make. That's not a small thing. Most of human construction has crumbled or burned or been torn apart for raw material. The fact that the Colosseum is still standing in the middle of a functioning modern city, or that Machu Picchu sat undisturbed on its mountain ridge for centuries while a whole empire collapsed around it, or that the Taj Mahal still has all its original marble inlay after nearly 400 years is genuinely remarkable. These things survived accidents of history, wars, earthquakes, weather, and the straightforward human tendency to knock old things down when you need the stones for something else. And the structures themselves are so different from each other. You've got a wall that took 2,000 years to build and a statue that took 5. You've got tombs and temples and fortifications and a city carved into a cliff and a city balanced on a mountain. Different religions, different empires, different tools, different centuries. The Mayan astronomers encoding equinox shadows into their pyramid had no knowledge of the Mughal craftsmen setting gemstones into marble 1,000 years later, and yet they both ended up on the same list, voted there by over 100 million people who apparently recognize something in each of them that still resonates. I genuinely don't know what that says about us exactly, but I think it probably says something.